Namaste. A busy businessman and a happy businessman. Two stories for you today. For the purposes of this story, I have created fictional characters. Any similarities in name or circumstances are just coincidental. I could have said busy business person to make it gender neutral. But in my experience, women tend to be a bit more organized when they run a business. So I decided to say businessman. Ladies in the audience would appreciate it when they hear the story. John is a busy businessman and he is meeting Tom, a client. John says, "Good morning, Tom." But then John is startled when his phone starts ringing. Something that can happen to many of you here. John apologizes and asks permission to answer his phone. Tom is obviously not happy as such. Meeting has just started after a delay, but John's phone has already started ringing. But being a true gentleman, he says, "Sure, go ahead." At the other end of the phone, it is Amy, a prospective client for John. Amy is wondering if John has rescheduled the meeting without actually informing her. She is a gentle lady and is being polite. But John, on the other end, was annoyed because his phone rang just as he was starting a meeting. John says, "Good morning, Amy. Sorry, but I'm in a meeting now." His voice conveys that it is wrong time for the phone call, and John tries to reschedule the meeting on the fly by asking, "Can we meet in 20 minutes, please?" But Amy has had enough. She very sternly replies, "I'm afraid not. You'll have to reschedule the meeting." Then she adds, "It may have been possible if only you had phoned me earlier." And she also states the reason for that. Amy states that she has been waiting over an hour for John to turn up for the meeting. John now realizes that it is actually his own fault and he tries to apologize by confessing that he forgot to check his paper diary. Well, most of us have a smartphone with us, but lots of us have trouble getting our business calendars on our phones, and even fewer can deal with calendar notifications in a smart way. Now, let us consider what opinion will Tom have. Tom thinks that John is unable to keep his appointments and has bungled them up. And what impression does this leave on a prospective client like Amy? Obviously, she is wondering if John handles all customers in the same disorganized and muddled up way. John tries to apologize to Tom and salvage the situation. But Tom isn't happy and wants to quickly go through the meeting and go through the document that John had promised delivery today. He also reminds John that this meeting is already running late. Now, here's the unfortunate part. John says that he printed the document yesterday but seemed to have misplaced it. Tom responds by saying that they need input from other departments within the organization and it would be hard with a printed copy. And more importantly, Tom states that they actually expected the document yesterday. John tries to convince Tom that he wanted to bring the hard copy and go over it with him in person. John asks if he can send it as an attachment to an email. Now, Tom is thinking, so what are we doing here then? Because John isn't delivering the document and is also late for meeting. So what is the point of the meeting? However, he says, all right, John, for now I'll let you email it by afternoon. And he also points out that it's already late. John is thankful for that and says that he will email the document as soon as he reaches his office and concludes the meeting. Here's a question for the audience. How many of you will have to be in your physical office to do that? Don't you think there must be a better way? Tom is doing a bit of loud thinking here. He is complaining that John turned up late for meeting but had completely forgotten another meeting and didn't even deliver what was expected yesterday. Tom concludes that John is not at all reliable. Having apologized twice within a short period of time, John comes out of the meeting in a bad shape. And then his phone rings again, and this time it is his better half, Sarah. John is happy to answer his phone this time, but Sarah has family priorities right. She asks whether John has forgotten that it is their daughter's birthday today. John is on the defense now and tries to remember whether he ordered the cake or not. Sarah states the obvious when she states that John always forgets the most important things in the world. She wants to make sure that there is a cake for the daughter's birthday. And then, being the better half, Sarah asks if he managed to deliver the document to Tom. Sarah says, "It was on your table last night and I put it in your briefcase, thinking you would forget to take it otherwise." Now, John is in a real pickle. He says he searched all over his table in the morning but couldn't find it. Now Sarah realizes what has happened. John did not deliver it, even though it was in his briefcase. John is defensive again and tries to justify by saying that he didn't expect it to be in his briefcase because he didn't put it himself. At this point in the story, whoever thinks that it is the wife's fault is a horrible person. Sarah is now sad and also realizes that she should better check with the bakers about the cake and somehow get a cake for daughter's birthday. John reflects on the day so far by saying it has been a terrible day. Sarah sympathizes, expresses her genuine concern, and hangs up the call. That was the first story. Now, let us see what is the gist of the story. John lives a chaotic life. He does have access to modern devices, but they all work in isolation. Divide and rule works only if you divide your enemies, not if you divide yourselves. The result is, solution for one problem becomes a problem on its own. Hope you can spot the irony here. I would say John is suffering from diarrhea. Pun intended. Moral of the story is, unify, simplify, amplify life. Now it's time for the second story. For the purposes of this story, I am using the same characters and similar circumstances, but with totally different outcome. John is a happy businessman and he is meeting a client, Tom. Eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that John also looks very smart as well. John and Tom are exchanging greetings. Now here's the big and smart difference that actually matters. Rather than go over the document with Tom in person, John has already shared it, but he is meeting Tom just to make sure that everything is all right. Tom acknowledges that it is all good and their departments have already started working with the document. Tom also acknowledges the fact that John is making sure everything is okay, a good customer service practice. John then concludes the meeting in a very professional way. Tom is impressed by how John has handled business. Now, John finds that there is a pop-up message on his phone reminding that he has a meeting with Amy. Being smart, he had moved the meeting to a time convenient for both him and Amy. John then sends a text message to Amy saying he is on his way for the meeting. John has now reached Amy's office in time and they are on to a good start. John asks if Amy received the text message he had sent. Amy acknowledges that it was nice of him to send a confirmation text message and also that he is on time. Amy says that she has a couple of questions about the product John is trying to sell. John says that he uses Google Apps. He can show photos and documents on his iPad. With such a good start, meeting goes very well. Having concluded both meetings professionally, John calls up his wife and says, "Sarah darling, it's me." Sarah appears to be in a happy mood, don't you think? John asks whether the birthday cake has arrived. Sarah confirms that the cake has indeed arrived and she is happy with it. John explains that calendar on his phone had reminded him to order the cake last week. They are a happy family. There are no secrets or ego problems between them. Sarah asks how was John's morning. John is happy to say that his meeting with Tom went very well and also that his meeting with Amy went very well because he could show her documents and photos on his iPad. Now, here's the most important part. He also tells her that he fixed the next meeting using his iPad. John expresses hope that in the next meeting he would be able to get her to sign the contract. Sarah is very happy to hear that. She also wants him to come home early so that they can celebrate daughter's birthday. Now, let's do a bit of analysis here. What is the difference between this story and the previous one? In this one, John is able to unify the technology he already has. He is able to make use of his phone more effectively, pop-up messages from his calendar, for example, and meeting reminders. Then there is client collaboration he is able to achieve, and of course open and frank communication within the team, John and his better half. Those were the two stories. Now a question to the audience. And you don't have to reveal the answer in front of everyone. I'm sure many of you can relate to what happened in the story to what happens in your business lives. Once again, I repeat my tagline: unify, simplify, amplify life. Thank you for listening to the two stories today. You can reach out to me for any questions you may have. Thank you.